Imagine calling 911 because you swear a ghost is doing dishes in your kitchen, or reporting an alien invasion from your backyard hammock. Believe it or not, these are real calls. We're diving into 49 real 911 calls where people genuinely thought they were battling specters, extraterrestrials, or even werewolves. Prepare to question everything, or at least the sanity of some people. 1. A sweaty middle-aged uncle in Florida called the police in a panic about his kitchen situation. He claimed a malicious spirit was invading his home every single night to mess with his decor. The man insisted the ghost was rearranging his alphabet fridge magnets into dark satanic symbols while he slept. Officers asked if he lived alone or had roommates who might be pranking him. He paused for a long time before admitting he lives with a very bored teenage daughter who hates his cooking. The dispatcher advised him to check her TikTok account before requesting an exorcism squad. The man hung up in total silence. 2. A highly agitated grandmother in Texas dialed 911 to report a very specific alien invasion in her trailer. She told the operator that extraterrestrials were beaming directly into her laundry room. The woman screamed that these space creatures were bypassing her jewelry and money to steal only her left socks. She claimed they were building a soft cotton mothership and leaving her with cold toes. The operator gently suggested the dryer might be eating them. The grandma got furious and said the dryer does not have glowing green eyes. It turns out her golden retriever had a stash of 30 socks under the porch. 3. A nervous young father in Ohio called emergency services, whispering from his closet. He was convinced a werewolf was prowling his front porch in the dark. The man claimed the beast was howling in perfect sync with his Ring doorbell motion sensor. He said the creature knew exactly when the camera started recording to avoid being seen. The dispatcher asked if he saw fur or claws on the video feed. The guy admitted it was just a dark shadow, but the howl was undeniable. Police arrived to find his neighbor practicing saxophone on the porch. The neighbor was just trying not to wake his own baby. The young dad felt ridiculous. 4. A dramatic housewife in California screamed at the operator that a poltergeist had taken over her smart home. She insisted the ghost was possessing her Roomba vacuum cleaner. The machine was ignoring the dust bunnies and aggressively chasing the family cat around the living room. She said the vacuum was making angry beeping noises that sounded like demonic laughter. The cat was currently on top of the refrigerator, refusing to come down. Officers suggested checking the remote control app on her husband's phone. It turned out her husband was controlling it from the bathroom for fun. The woman threatened to vacuum up his phone next. 5. A frantic corporate broker in New York dialed 911 while walking through Times Square. He claimed aliens were currently probing his brain through his expensive AirPods. The man reported hearing strange, high-pitched frequencies interrupting his favorite true crime podcast. He was convinced the signals were downloading his banking passwords directly to a spaceship. The operator asked if he was near any construction sites or subway grates. The man paused and looked up at a massive crane drilling into the pavement nearby. He realized the alien probe was actually just heavy machinery. He hung up immediately and pretended to be on a business call. 6. A superstitious elderly aunt in Michigan called the station in absolute terror. She reported that a demon was messing with the concept of time in her vintage cottage. Every single clock in the house was turning backward exactly 6 minutes and 6 seconds. She believed this was a specific countdown to the apocalypse or bad bingo luck. The woman demanded a priest and a SWAT team immediately. Police investigated and found her mischievous grandson visiting for the weekend. The boy had changed the clocks to make her late for her bridge club. The aunt was relieved but grounded him until he was 30. 7. A deeply confused truck driver in Arizona pulled his 18-wheeler over to call for help. He swore he just passed a werewolf hitchhiking on the side of the dusty highway. The driver said the hairy beast was wearing ripped denim shorts and holding a cardboard sign. He claimed the creature locked eyes with him and growled for a ride to Phoenix. The dispatcher asked if the driver had been awake for more than 20 hours. The man admitted he was exhausted and running on energy drinks. A patrol car later found a very hairy biker whose motorcycle had broken down nearby. The trucker apologized profusely. 8. A frantic conspiracy theorist in Georgia called authorities about an invasion in his living room. He shouted that aliens were projecting holographic advertisements on his wall. The The man claimed the Martians were trying to sell him prime real estate on the red planet. He described glowing lights and floating texts promising low gravity, living with no taxes. The operator asked if he had fallen asleep with the television on. The man turned around and saw his new projector TV was playing a sci-fi movie trailer. He felt foolish but still asked if the police knew the current exchange rate for Martian currency. 9. An angry commuter in Illinois called 911 while stuck in heavy morning traffic. He was absolutely convinced a ghost was invisibly tailgating his sedan. The man claimed he could feel the spectral pressure on his rear bumper, even though no car was there. He checked his rearview mirror constantly and saw nothing but empty air and malice. The dispatcher explained that ghosts usually do not drive during rush hour. It turned out the sensors on his fancy new car were malfunctioning due to mud. The beeping proximity alarm was driving him crazy for no reason. He promised to wash his car immediately. 10. A tipsy tourist in Nevada dialed emergency services from the floor of a noisy casino. She whispered loudly that a pack of werewolves had formed a conga line around her slot machine. The woman insisted they were wearing Hawaiian shirts to blend in with the crowd. She said they were howling to the beat of the music and blocking her winning streak. Security guards arrived to find a bachelor party celebrating a groom named Wolf. The men were wearing wolf masks and having a great time. The woman was escorted to the buffet to sober up and eat some bread rolls. 11. A jittery barista from Washington State called the police trembling with rage. He was convinced a passive-aggressive ghost was haunting his kitchen pantry. The man claimed the spirit was replacing his premium espresso beans with decaf one by one. He felt tired and groggy every morning, despite drinking 3 huge cups of dark roast. The dispatcher asked if anyone else had access to his coffee stash. He remembered his girlfriend had recently started a health kick to lower his blood pressure. She was secretly switching the bags to save his heart. The man felt betrayed, but his resting heart rate was actually excellent. 12. A shirtless man in Florida dialed 911 while holding a pool noodle. He reported that extraterrestrials had crash-landed in his backyard swimming pool. The man insisted the aliens were wearing Speedos and challenging him to a freestyle swim race. He said they were splashing water everywhere and mocking his butterfly stroke technique. The operator asked if he had been drinking margaritas in the sun all afternoon. The man looked closer at the intruders and realized they were just his neighbor's kids using his slide. He had forgotten he invited them over for a pool party. He hung up and joined the race. 13. A highly organized book club president in Texas called authorities in tears. She claimed a werewolf had infiltrated their weekly meeting at the library. The woman reported the hairy beast was sitting in the back, eating all the snacks. She was furious because the creature kept howling the ending of every mystery novel before they finished discussing it. The police arrived to find a very hairy man who had just wandered in from the street. He was actually just a lonely guy looking for free cheese and conversation. The ladies eventually let him stay as long as he promised no more spoilers. 14. A stressed executive in New York called emergency services from the back of a taxi. He whispered that a ghost was persistently riding shotgun in every single Uber he took. The man claimed the invisible spirit was playing terrible jazz music and messing with the air conditioning. He said the driver seemed completely unaware of the spectral passengers sitting next to him. The dispatcher suggested he might just be getting the same driver repeatedly. The man checked the app and realized he had accidentally booked the same guy 3 times in a row. The driver just really liked jazz. The executive tipped him poorly. 15. A confused delivery driver in California pulled over to report an alien cyber attack. He told the operator that Martians had hacked his GPS navigation system. The man shouted that the voice directions were no longer English, but had changed to angry Klingon. He was driving in circles because he did not know the word for turn, left in alien language. The dispatcher asked if his teenage son had borrowed the car recently. The man remembered his son was a massive sci-fi nerd. He checked the settings menu and found the novelty voice pack. He grounded his son for making him late for dinner. 16. A panicked homeowner in Ohio called the police about a haunting in his backyard. He insisted that ghosts were sneaking in at night to inflate his pool floats. The man claimed the spirits were twisting the plastic swans into terrifying demonic shapes. He said he woke up to find a pink flamingo looking like a twisted monster. Officers asked if the heat wave caused the plastic to expand and warp naturally. The man paused and looked at the thermometer, reading 90 degrees. He realized the sun was the culprit and not the undead. He felt silly for being scared of a melted duck. 17. An intense soccer mom in Michigan dialed 911 from the sidelines of a game. She screamed that a werewolf was refereeing the match and cheating against her son. The woman claimed the ref was growling at the players and making calls based on smell. She insisted his hairy legs were a clear sign of lycanthropy. The dispatcher explained that being hairy is not a crime. It turned out the referee was just a local college student with a beard who forgot to shave. The mom was asked to leave the field for yelling at the poor guy. Her son was totally embarrassed. 18. A proud grill master in Georgia called authorities to report an intergalactic insult. He claimed aliens had beamed down into his backyard solely to critique his barbecue technique. The man said the glowing beings were hovering over his smoker and shaking their heads in disappointment. He was offended that they called his dry rub seasoning too salty. The operator asked if it was possible his competitive brother-in-law was playing a prank with a drone. The man looked up and saw a drone with a speaker attached buzzing overhead. He grabbed the garden hose and sprayed the drone down. The aliens suddenly lost the signal. 19. A frustrated woman in Illinois called the station to report a spiritual scammer. She insisted a ghost was whispering, winning lottery numbers into her ear while she slept. The lady was angry because the numbers were always exactly one digit off from the jackpot. She claimed the spirit was mocking her financial dreams on purpose. The dispatcher asked if she was just dreaming about numbers she saw on television. The woman admitted she fell asleep watching the lottery drawing every night. The ghost was just her own subconscious remembering the wrong numbers. She decided to switch to bingo, where the odds were better. 20. A hysterical gambler in Nevada called security and then the police from a blackjack table. He shouted that the dealer was definitely a werewolf in a cheap suit. The man claimed the creature was shuffling the cards with supernatural speed and growling when he hit on 16. He said the werewolf was winning every hand because he could smell the fear. The pit boss arrived and explained the dealer just had a bad cold and very hairy knuckles. The gambler refused to apologize and demanded a silver bullet. He was escorted out for causing a scene and losing all his chips. 21. A jumpy software engineer in Washington dialed 911 from under his weighted blanket. He was convinced a sadistic ghost had hacked his streaming service profile. The man claimed the spirit was purposely switching his algorithm recommendations to extreme horror movies only. He said he just wanted to watch a romantic comedy, but the menu was full of chainsaws and screams. The dispatcher asked if he shared his password with anyone. He realized his goth teenage niece had visited last week. She had binged 10 slasher films while babysitting. The man felt relieved but still slept with the lights on. 22. A fierce grandmother in Florida called authorities to report a very petty alien abduction. She claimed extraterrestrials were landing in her garden every Tuesday night. The woman screamed that the beings were stealing her vintage lawn chairs for a joyride. The worst part was that they returned the chairs the next morning folded completely wrong. She said the aliens had zero respect for proper patio furniture storage. The operator asked if it was just the wind knocking them over. The woman insisted the wind does not know how to stack aluminum. It was actually her husband sleepwalking and tidying up badly. 23. A confused dad in Texas called the sheriff to report a supernatural stalker. He was trying to take nice family photos for a holiday card. The man insisted a werewolf was blurry and photobombing every single selfie he took. He claimed a hairy beast appeared in the background, making bunny ears behind his wife. The dispatcher asked to see the digital evidence. Upon closer inspection, the werewolf was just his very ugly and hairy thumb covering the lens. The man had been holding the phone wrong the entire time. His wife was furious that he ruined the sunset pictures. 24. An impatient stockbroker in New York called emergency services from a high-rise lobby. He was out of breath and shouting about a poltergeist in the building. The man claimed a spiteful ghost was pressing the close door button on the elevator. He said it happened every single time right before he could step inside. The spirit was clearly targeting his morning commute to make him late. The operator suggested he just walk too slowly. The man watched the security feed and saw the janitor holding the button down. The janitor just really enjoyed riding alone in peace and quiet. 25. A desperate day trader in California dialed 911 to report insider trading from space. He told the police that aliens were beaming financial advice directly into his brain. The man was angry because every single stock tip the Martians gave him crashed immediately. He claimed the aliens were trying to bankrupt him for their own amusement. The dispatcher asked where he was getting this information. The man admitted he was reading forums on a sketchy conspiracy website. At 3 in the morning, the police advised him to hire a real financial advisor and stop listening to voices in his head. 26. A baffled housewife in Ohio called the station to report a laundry room haunting. She was crying because a ghost kept turning her white clothes bright pink. The woman insisted she separated her colors perfectly every single time. She believed the spirit was a fashion disaster who hated white linens. Officers asked if she had checked the washing machine drum. She looked inside and found a solitary red sock stuck in the rubber seal. It belonged to her son, who was hiding from her wrath. The ghost was just a cheap red dye that leaked in hot water. 27. A stunned pedestrian in Michigan called authorities from a busy downtown street. He swore he just watched a werewolf parallel park a sedan perfectly. The man said the driver had paws on the steering wheel and was howling at traffic. He was impressed but terrified by the creature's driving skills in a tight spot. The dispatcher asked if the driver was wearing a fur coat. The man looked again and saw it was just a lady in a very fluffy winter jacket. The hood was up and covered her face. The man felt silly for calling the cops on a parka. 28. A horrified woman in Georgia dialed 911, screaming about a cyber attack in her bathroom. She claimed malicious aliens had hacked her Bluetooth smart scale overnight. The woman reported that the device showed she had gained 50 pounds in one sleep. She insisted gravity on her property had been altered by a spaceship beam. The operator gently suggested checking the calibration of the device. The woman looked down and saw her heavy dog sitting on the scale behind her. The golden retriever was adding the extra weight. She apologized to the police and gave the good boy a treat anyway. 29. A furious sports fan in Illinois called the police to report digital possession. He was convinced a ghost had guessed his password and entered his fantasy football league. The man claimed the spirit was benching his star players and starting injured ones. He was losing every week because of this supernatural interference. The dispatcher asked if he set his lineup while drinking beer on Saturday nights. The man went silent and remembered his drunken strategy sessions. He realized he was the one sabotage his own team. The police told him to drink water and check the injury report sober. 30. An outraged waitress in Nevada called security and then the police from a buffet. She shouted that a family of werewolves had just eaten all the shrimp. The woman was most upset because the creatures left a $0 tip on the table. She claimed they growled at her when she refilled their water glasses. The police arrived to find a rowdy group of tourists with very thick beards. They were just rude and cheap customers, not mythical beasts. The waitress was disappointed she could not use silver bullets to make them pay the service charge. 31. A paranoid homeowner in Washington called the police about his smart doorbell. He insisted a flirtatious ghost had possessed the camera lens. The man claimed the device was winking at delivery drivers instead of recording them. He said the ghost was trying to seduce the mailman with digital blinks. The dispatcher asked if the device was low on battery. The man checked the app and saw the power was flashing red. The blinking light was just a warning signal for low energy. He felt ridiculous for thinking his doorbell was looking for love. The mailman was just confused by the blinking light. 32. A hysterical man in Florida dialed 911 standing in his front yard. He screamed that aliens had crop-dusted his driveway during the night. The man reported seeing glowing green parking lines painted on the concrete. He was convinced the mothership was reserving a spot for a landing. The operator asked if he had done any home improvement projects recently. The man remembered he bought glow-in-the-dark paint for a craft project. He had spilled the bucket while walking to the garage in the dark. The aliens were just his own clumsy feet. The driveway looked like a radioactive rave. 33. An intense football fan in Texas called the sheriff during a draft party. He claimed a werewolf had crashed the event and stolen the best players. The man said the beast was sitting at the laptop growling at anyone who tried to pick a quarterback. He insisted the creature had unfair knowledge of player stats. The police asked if his hairy cousin from out of town had arrived. The man looked across the table at his hirsute relative. His cousin was just very aggressive about fantasy football. The man apologized but still tried to trade his cousin for a better kicker. 34. A freezing woman in New York called emergency services wrapped in a towel. She was shivering and angry about a ghost in her plumbing. The lady claimed their spirit was stealing all the hot water midway through her shower. She said the water turned to ice instantly whenever she shampooed her hair. The operator suggested checking the building's water heater capacity. It turned out her teenage son was starting the dishwasher and washing machine simultaneously. The ghost was just bad household timing. The woman marched to the kitchen to scold her son. She demanded he take cold showers for a week. 35. A confused amateur chef in California dialed 911 from his gourmet kitchen. He reported that aliens had invaded his pantry to sabotage his dinner. The man insisted the extraterrestrials had replaced his spice labels with unpronounceable alien words. He could not find the cumin because the jar was written in a strange code. The dispatcher asked if he had bought imported spices recently. The man looked closer and realized he was holding the jar upside down. It was also written in French. He felt very uncultured and hung up. The dinner turned out bland because he was too afraid to season it. 36. A bewildered resident in Ohio called the police to report a spectral valet. He was convinced that ghosts were moving his parked car every single night. The man claimed he left his sedan on Main Street but woke up to find it on Oak Avenue. He said the spirits were taking it for joyrides around the block. The dispatcher asked if he often parked late at night while tired. The man admitted he worked the night shift and was usually exhausted. He was just forgetting where he parked in his sleep-deprived state. The ghosts were innocent. He bought a notebook to track his spot. 37. A competitive soccer mom in Michigan called authorities from a Little League field. She screamed that a werewolf was coaching the rival team. The woman claimed the coach was howling orders at the children and baring his teeth. She insisted his beard was too thick to be human. The police arrived to find a very enthusiastic dad with a pandemic beard. He was just cheering loudly for his son to run faster. The woman was asked to calm down and stop analyzing the opposing team's facial hair. The game continued without any silver bullets. Her son lost the game, but enjoyed the snacks. 38. A terrified driver in Georgia pulled over to the shoulder to call for help. He claimed a saucer had landed and blocked the road ahead. The man said aliens were banging on his window, demanding the return of their misplaced probe. He was sweating and clutching a meat thermometer he had just bought. The operator asked if he had cut off another driver. The man looked up and saw a road rage driver yelling about a stolen parking spot. The alien was just an angry local in a silver car. The man hid his thermometer and drove away very slowly. 39. A mortified woman in Illinois called the station to report a cyber haunting. She insisted a prankster ghost had possessed her smartphone keyboard. The lady claimed the spirit was changing her innocent text to embarrassing typos automatically. She said she tried to type duck, but the ghost changed it to a rude word every time. The dispatcher explained how predictive text algorithms work based on usage. The woman went silent, realizing she used bad language often enough for the phone to learn it. She blamed the ghost again anyway. She decided to call people instead of texting to be safe. 40. A losing gambler in Nevada called security and 911 from a slot machine bank. He shouted that werewolves were hiding inside the casino walls. The man claimed the beasts were howling jackpot sounds to trick him into playing more. He said every time he walked away, he heard a howl of coins dropping. The floor manager explained those were just the sound effects of the machines. The man insisted the pitch was too animalistic to be digital. He demanded the machines be opened to check for wolves. He was escorted out for trying to feed steak to a slot machine. 41. A teenage influencer in Washington called the police, crying about cyberbullying from the afterlife. She was convinced a jealous ghost was haunting her YouTube channel. The girl claimed the spirit was logging in just to dislike every single comment she posted. She said her engagement analytics were being ruined by the undead hater. The dispatcher asked if she had any living enemies online. She paused and remembered her ex-boyfriend knew her login details. He was not a ghost, but he was definitely dead to her. She changed her password and the dislikes stopped immediately. The police advised her to block him. 42. A retired man in Florida dialed 911 screaming about an extraterrestrial rave in his yard. He reported that aliens had hacked his irrigation system to create a light show. The man claimed the water was glowing neon green and pulsing to a silent beat. He was terrified the spaceship was about to land on his freshly cut grass. The operator asked if he had installed new landscape lighting recently. He looked closer and saw the LED lights reflecting off the water spray. The aliens were just expensive garden lights he bought on sale. He felt foolish but admitted it looked pretty cool. 43. A confused cowboy in Texas called the sheriff from a noisy honky-tonk bar. He insisted a werewolf had broken into the dance hall uninvited. The man claimed the hairy beast was line dancing perfectly to country music. He said the creature was stomping its paws and showing off better moves than the locals. The dispatcher asked if the dancer was wearing boots. The man squinted through the smoke and saw it was just Big Jim. Big Jim had not shaved all winter and was wearing a fur vest. The cowboy apologized and bought Big Jim a beer for his smooth moves. 44. A tired commuter in New York called emergency services from a moving subway train. He was furious that a ghost was hogging the only empty seat during rush hour. The man claimed the seat looked empty but felt incredibly cold and hostile. He said everyone else was avoiding it out of spiritual fear. The operator suggested looking at the seat for liquids. The man looked down and saw a spilled slushie melting on the plastic. The ghost was actually just a sticky mess of blue raspberry syrup. He stood up for the rest of the ride and felt very silly. 45. A sleep-deprived woman in California dialed 911 at 4 in the morning. She was convinced aliens were beaming commercial advertisements directly into her dreams. The lady claimed she woke up with an irresistible urge to buy a vegetable chopper. She insisted the Martians were running a marketing campaign inside her brainwaves. The dispatcher asked if she fell asleep with the television on. She looked at her nightstand and saw her tablet playing a shopping channel loop. The aliens were just hosts selling kitchen gadgets. She turned it off but still ordered the chopper because it looked really useful. 46. A panicked gardener in Ohio called the police about a possessed power tool. He insisted a demon had taken control of his gas leaf blower. The man claimed the machine was blowing leaves into specific cursive curse words on the lawn. He said the wind was spelling out insults directed at his landscaping skills. The operator asked if the wind was just blowing randomly. The man watched the leaves swirl and realized it was just a coincidence. The word was not a curse, but just a pile of maple leaves. He decided to rake by hand to avoid further insults. 47. A shocked neighbor in Michigan called authorities during a heavy thunderstorm. She reported seeing a werewolf breakdancing on the roof of the house next door. The woman claimed the beast was spinning on its back while lightning flashed behind it. She was terrified the creature would slip and fall into her yard. The police arrived to find a chimney sweep trying to fix a leak in the rain. He was slipping and sliding on the wet shingles frantically. The werewolf moves were just a man trying not to die. The woman felt bad and offered him a hot towel. 48. A frantic chef in Georgia dialed 911 from her kitchen floor. She screamed that aliens had broken in solely to reorganize her spice rack. The woman claimed the jars were now arranged alphabetically in the Martian language. She could not find the paprika because the logic made no earthly sense. The dispatcher asked if her husband had tried to clean the kitchen. The woman paused and remembered he washed the counters earlier. He had put the jars back in random order by color. The Martian code was just his terrible organizing skills. She banned him from the kitchen forever. 49. A terrified driver in Illinois pulled onto the highway's shoulder to call for help. He was hyperventilating because a glowing entity was riding on his roof rack. The man claimed the spirit was surfing the wind and holding on tight at 60 miles per hour. He saw the eerie green glow reflecting in his sunroof. The operator asked if he had strapped anything to the roof recently. He remembered tying down his kid's new neon kayak. The glowing ghost was just plastic reflecting the streetlights. He felt incredibly relieved, but checked the straps again just to be sure. Well, there you have it. 49 folks who honestly think the boogeyman drives a Honda Civic. If you survived this whole video without calling the police on your own shadow, then congratulations. You are officially a genius compared to these people. That is just the standard we set here at BrainFumble. If you laughed at their pain, please hit that like button and subscribe immediately. Do not forget to turn on notifications, or the ghost might actually get you. Now tell me in the comments, what is the dumbest thing you have ever been scared of at night? Let me know down below.